Hello, everybody, and welcome back to our lecture series. I'm Ted, your host, and for this lecture, we are going to look at the not lecture. This is a fast fact. Sorry about that. This is a fast fact series. For this fast facts, we're going to look at the Florida land bubble. Now, the Florida land bubble was a very serious regional economic collapse during the 1920s, and many people in retrospect tend to view the Florida land bubble as a forerunner of the stock market crash and also of the depression. And its roots are in Florida, opening up as a new destination for migrants in the United States and also retirees in the United States. Florida always has a very warm climate throughout the year, and Florida gained the reputation as a very well acclimated winter retreat destination and retirement destination. And they were aided. Florida was aided in creating this reputation by the completion of the national railroad networks, all those transcontinental rail lines that shuttled goods back and forth and peoples back and forth between east and west. They also shuttled people back and forth between all other compass points and Florida. Florida experienced this very rapid growth in the first 2 decades of the 20th century, due in no small part to the career of people like George Merrick. Merrick had been a minister before, but he became one of the central figures in the Florida land rush. Merrick was among one of the developers who helped to transform Florida into a real estate paradise. Merrick, of course, is credited with creating Coral Gables in Florida, and he created Coral Gables as an homage to Venice, the Italian city. The area had once simply been a swamp, but Merrick used drainage canals to drain most of that swamp water out of there, and they also had canals constructed, permanent canal constructed, so that the area would retain a sort of like Venice-like feel, a Venice-like flair, and to really cement that image, he imported Venetian gondoliers to come to Coral Gables and to ply their trade. Merrick was one of those individuals who really sort of spearheaded the campaign to make Florida not just a winter destination, but a destination for relocation. And one of the factors that made Florida relocation of Florida permanent relocation of Florida and part-time relocation of Florida feasible was the identification of mosquitoes as the vectors of malaria. With the development of mosquito suppression policies, malaria became less of a concern. With malaria no longer being a concern, and with policies in place to develop new settlements, Florida grew. The population of Florida grew rapidly. For example, the city of Miami had a population of roughly 30,000 in 1920. And by 1925, it had a population of 75,000. And at first, people were very careful with the type of land they were acquiring, opting for seafront property and later property inland where towns were being developed. But as the boom continued, the tales of the greatness and the vast opportunities of Florida real estate spread, and speculators began buying land unseen from very unscrupulous businessmen. And these practices develop with fraudulent ads for coastal lands being sent to unsuspecting buyers. Many of these customers, these speculators, they were enticed by these fraudulent advertisements for land that was far inland in swampy areas that had no plan for development and no drainage plans. Rather than the coastal areas that they thought they wanted, that they thought they were acquiring. And all of this continued because the market value kept rising. And as long as the market value kept rising, speculator could acquire land and hold on to it and then sell it to an unsuspecting buyer, making a tidy profit in the process. And that simply means that someone duped one buyer into buying worthless land. The buyer, unable to get his money back from the original seller, holds on to the land until a new buyer comes along, a new speculator comes along, and the buyer who was duped into buying the land, this worthless land, simply dupes another buyer into buying the land and walks away with having recouped his initial loss, in addition to making a tidy profit in the process. The entire scheme came to a jarring halt in 1926 when two hurricanes in quick succession swept through the Miami area and caused nearly 500 deaths and left 50,000 people homeless. It was a great natural catastrophe, and in the ensuing fallout, Florida received a very severe death blow to an image had this peaceful, tranquil, idyllic paradise. Property prices collapsed, and many of the local resorts and communities were simply left as incomplete ruins, really ghost towns, incomplete ghost towns that dotted the Florida landscape for decades to come. That'll do it for this Fast Fact. Hit like, subscribe, and comment. Let me know what you thought about it. And I'm Ted, and I'll see you guys next time for another Fast Fact.